Welcome, everyone. My name is Kara McNally. I'm a nurse patient educator here at the Blum Center at the Maxwell and Eleanor Blum Patient Family Learning Center. Before we get started, we have a few housekeeping issues to share. This session is being recorded for educational purposes. The Blum Center website is massgeneral.org/Blum Center. You are in listen-only mode. Please ask your questions using the chat feature. Only Blum Center staff and the guest speaker will see your questions. Don't share any personal medical information or questions in the chat box. Please complete the program survey to help us plan for future programs. Joining us today is Dr. Michelle Doran. Dr. Doran has decades of clinical and leadership experience as a nurse. She is a former professional development specialist with Massachusetts General Hospital. Michelle has developed and delivered many workshops and webinars on a variety of well-being topics, and she has recently completed her health and well-being coach training through Duke Health. She is here today to share ways to manage the impact of the winter season. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Doran.
Thank you, Kara, and everybody. Does my screen look okay?
Looks great, Michelle.
Okay, great. So the title of my presentation for all of you this evening is called Finding the Light in the Darkness as we live through a dark and cold winter in the northeastern season. So, oh, my slides are not advancing. There we go. So let me start off by welcoming everybody. I don't know if I'm talking to a large group of people or a small group of people, but regardless of the number, I really celebrate joining together for learning and actually coming together to connect is one strategy to combat some of the kind of negative impacts of being in winter. So welcome to all of you who joined, and thank you very much for showing up. I'm going to talk a little bit about winter. So, presumably we all know what winter is, but go into a little more about the winter season, talk about the impact of darkness on our bodies, mentally and physiologically, the impact of light on our bodies, physiologically and mentally. I'll talk a little bit about seasonal affective disorder and then share some ways that we can embrace and manage the winter. And this discussion is, pretty high level. It's not very scientific. Although I am a nurse, I'm not going to be giving any medical or nursing advice. If anything comes up for you as we maybe talk about seasonal affective disorder, and that's something that resonates with you, I would encourage you to reach out to a provider or another caregiver who could help address that for you. But we'll just go through that kind of high level about what seasonal affective disorder is. So let's get started. This is a picture that I took on a nature walk in winter. And being out in nature is another thing we'll talk about in a little bit. But there's a lot written about winter, from poets to authors. And I chose this one today for us, maybe for some reflection. So, in the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me, there lay an invincible summer. So you all can think about that and reflect upon what that means for you. I will offer and invite you to think about that in the depths of winter, as the words say, there is light within. And there's a way to kind of reframe winter to look at the bright things and the ways that we can embrace it in a different way. And that's part of the theme of this discussion today. So something for you to reflect on and think about as we get started. So what is winter? Well, in December, that's really the onset of winter. And that's marked by winter solstice, which is a familiar term, I think, to everybody. And that always occurs on December 21 or 22. That is the shortest day of the year with the longest nights, so the least amount of sunshine. Winter weather patterns often begin in December with strengthening and colder conditions in the east and above normal temperatures in the west. What I didn't have on here is that starting in the late fall is daylight saving time, is when we start to lose those sunlight hours. The sun starts to set earlier in the day. And the good news is when we hit winter solstice, we start gaining a little bit of that time back, little by little, minute by day. So if you look on your phone app to look when the sun sets, right now we are nearing in the 5 o'clock range. So it's 4 o'clock now, it's still bright, and in about an hour, we'll still have some sunlight out there. So that's encouraging. As we move into winter, which is known as the core winter, that's usually the coldest month of the year. A lot of lake effects, snow peaks in the Great Lakes region. Again, I'm talking about the Northern Hemisphere. February, typically peak snowfall, and we've definitely experienced that here in the Northeast and in Boston. It's often the snowiest months in the Northeast and parts of Canada. For Northeasters, very cold conditions, and we've certainly experienced that. Some regions experiencing the lowest temperatures, and we've certainly been experiencing below normal low temperatures. And then March is a transition month. So here in Boston and New England, March is a transition into spring. The equinox is in mid to late March. We still often experience winter-like conditions, and winter tends to linger. So it's often said in Boston and New England that we really don't get much of a spring around here. So that's what March brings. And then the winter solstice, I feel like this is in the way here. If people can see my screen. The winter solstice, I just wanted to point out what that means. So if you look at this map and you look at the Northern Hemisphere and where we're located, way on the far eastern side of that globe, it is because the winter solstice, those shorter days, we are the furthest away from the sun during this time frame. And this is caused because we are tilted just so far away from the sun, allowing less light to reach the northern hemisphere. But again, if you feel like me, the good news is that we've surpassed the winter solstice. So we're starting to get a little more light. Having some trouble with my advanced slides, so bear with me. Okay. So what does that mean when we have more darkness? So winter and lack of light primarily affect us through hormonal shifts. It disrupts our natural circadian rhythms, and it can lead to seasonal affective disorder, otherwise known as the winter blues. And we'll talk a little bit more about that next. Some of the symptoms that people can feel are depression, fatigue, issues with your sleep, appetite, maybe feeling like you want to socially withdraw, vitamin D deficiency, which I'll talk some more about. Vitamin D is really known as the sunshine vitamin. The darkness can affect our mood, our energy, our bone health due to the vitamin D decreases in vitamin D, decreases in serotonin, which is our mood boosting hormone, increases in melatonin, which is a sleep inducing hormone, and overall, just creating a cascade of physical and mental challenges in darkness. And this may sound familiar to all of you, some of those symptoms. And if we look more closely at seasonal affective disorder, this is a form of depression recurring in the winter months, usually lasting about 4 or 5 months. And not every person experiences these symptoms all at once or all the same. They don't always manifest into a situation where you need some professional interventions. But here are some of the symptoms that may resonate with you. So feeling sad, anxious, having an empty mood, lasting for over 2 weeks, feeling hopelessness or pessimism, irritability, frustration, restlessness. I won't read through all of them. The more severe ones are listed over towards the bottom, but really just having a lot of different changes in your body, again, related to that darkness, related to the changes in hormones within our bodies. And so lastly, the social withdrawal feels like hibernation, which hibernating is a natural occurrence in a lot of animals in winter months. So we may feel like hibernating, but of course we don't actually go through true hibernation. So if people are feeling some of these symptoms, you're not alone. They're very common. About 1 in 5 people experience some of these symptoms or all of these symptoms. And again, if you felt extremely symptomatic with some of these, I would encourage you to discuss these with your provider. So what's an antidote to all of that is some sunshine. There's some incredible benefits to getting sunshine in the summer months, even though it's harder because the sun isn't out as long. And we're going to talk about some ways that you can grasp some of that vitamin D and what the sunshine really can do to boost your mood and improve your overall health during the summertime. And this was taken at a local beach in the wintertime when I took a winter walk. So what are the benefits of sunshine? So the sunshine acts as the body's main timing cue. It sets your sleep patterns. It affects emotional balance, your alertness. And studies show that more exposure to sunlight and time outdoors correlate with better mental health and outcomes. And exposure to sunlight, time in green spaces, and physical activity all have really positive impacts on those feelings of depression, anxiety, and stress, which can be exacerbated during the winter. So the benefits of winter sunlight, we've been talking about this, is vitamin D production. So being outside for 10 to 30 minutes a day, preferably around noontime when the sun is out shining brightly, it produces more vitamin D. That's really important for calcium absorption, your bone health, and your immune function. For your mental health and mood, sunlight boosts your serotonin, that feel-good hormone, and reduce the risks of feeling depression or even seasonal affective disorder. Sunlight really has an impact on your sleep. So natural light exposure helps regulate your internal rhythm, promoting better sleep quality. So when you wake up in the morning and the sun starts to rise, if you can get some direct sunlight in the morning, that will start your circadian rhythm for the day and really set you on a good pattern for good sleeping. So that's a really strong recommendation if you can do that. And then the sunlight also gives you increased energy, reduces your feelings of just ho-hum. Your exposure to natural sunlight during the day and morning can really help curb that winter fatigue and give you a real strong boost. So those are the impacts of darkness, and light. And I wanted to talk next about something that I uncovered doing this, some research and homework for this talk, and it may be familiar to some of you. And I knew about this a little bit, but it was great to learn some more. So this terminology, I hope I pronounce it correctly, vintermes, is a Swedish word that translate to winter coziness and winter cozy time. And it talks a lot about this culture really embracing winter and all of the positive things that come around with being warm, feeling snuggly, creating those snuggly spaces, feeling cozy, switching your lifestyle from being on the go and running around to just taking time to relax, stay inside, have a cozy blanket, light a candle or a fireplace, have a hot drink like a hot cocoa or a hot tea or an Irish coffee, spending time with friends and family, having some good food and conversation, and just relaxing, picking up hobbies that maybe you've done before but let go, or giving yourself permission to just relax and maybe knit or read, but really just to slow down and embrace this time of season as an opportunity to do that with no guilt, guilt-free. This is the great opportunity to do that for yourself. I also found out that IKEA, the company that makes a lot of furniture, has a whole collection based on this concept, and that you can find playlists on Spotify and book titles around this. So I thought this was a really interesting thing to share in this talk around a cultural way to embrace winter in a really cozy way. So let's talk about a few more strategies to manage winter and ways to kind of combat it. So one that's really important is to get outside into nature. There's a lot of literature, a lot of science that exists and continues to evolve around the healing nature of the healing modalities of nature. So green space, fresh air, the natural elements. Gearing up, taking a walk after a snowstorm, taking a walk through the woods, getting outside is really important. I'll add to that that I just read something this morning about the benefits of movement and dance and how that combats feelings of depression. So maybe even having, some dance party in your house or putting music on while you're doing your chores, or while you're outside walking with your earbuds, getting some more movement while you're out there. But nature is very healing, and getting outside into the natural elements is a really positive way to combat some of those winter blues. Again, soaking in some sunshine and vitamin D whenever you can. I didn't put anything in here about UV lights. Some people call them happy lights, because they do work for some people. I've heard a lot of anecdotal positive things from the use of that, but the science really isn't conclusive. But that's something that, may work for some people and you might want to try. Those are readily available to purchase at retail stores or on Amazon. And then don't isolate. Keep your social connections alive. virtually or in person. Some things that I have noticed and try to do in the winter that get me out and about, and you may have some others that you do, is my town has a local farmers market that's active even in the winter. I have a local farm that's open in the winter and it's all sheltered, but I can go get fresh vegetables there. My local library has a lot of activities in the winter for children and families. Book clubs are another way, either in person or virtually, to stay connected. Making opportunities to meet people out, for, again, a walk in nature or a hot coffee, um, and doing social Zooms with your family members if you can't travel. Just find ways to stay connected because it is very easy to kind of isolate and hibernate and not feel like you want to get out and do things. Um, but even just going through, your community activities online or through community centers, there are actually a lot of things happening. I'll add yoga studios have a lot of great workshops during the winter time, a lot of restorative yoga. So lots of ways to keep those social connections active. And also use the time to really slow down, rest, and restore and embrace the meaning of winter. Give yourself that permission. Most of us lead a very busy and hectic lifestyle. So winter is a wonderful time to give yourself that grace, to slow down and just relax. And then accept the hushed beauty of winter. It can be very quiet after a snowstorm, very quiet at night, because you don't hear a lot of activity in the morning when you wake up. There are some birds that don't migrate. I know cardinals are one of them, but listening to the birds in the morning, but it will be a slower or less noisy cacophony of birds singing is another nice way to start your day, another nice ritual to have in the winter. And then I put here dormancy versus death. So lessons from nature. So much of nature is dormant in the winter, but it's not dead. There are buds on trees, just in their protective shells, ready to bloom when the winter changes, when the sun gets brighter, when the temperature gets warmer. So think about that notion of just being a little dormant, but you're not. I mean, death is kind of an extreme word, but lessons from nature around that dormancy, but being ready to bloom when springtime comes. Go to the next one. I wanted to share some books that I have found while I was doing some homework for, for this talk tonight. I have read Wintering by Catherine May, and it's a great book. Um, this author talks about some hard times that she went through during the winter months and how she learned to embrace winter and kind of turn around the dark days of winter and really learn from it through some of her rituals and things that she started doing, like canning vegetables or knitting, and other rituals that she added to her life. So it was a great book. I'm not as familiar with, but I did peruse the other two books, and the reviews on them also are really positive. And these books really are about what we were talking about resting, reconnecting with some hobbies, some creativity, thinking about living your life in a conscious way when you slow down from the hustle and bustle, and finding joy outside in nature. And then how to winter, um, harness the mindset to thrive on the cold, dark, or difficult days. Again, kind of flipping the mindset of being stuck in the darkness of winter and really finding some joyful ways to embrace winter. So I'm not necessarily endorsing these books over some others, but these are some that I found that I think would be interesting to explore. And if any of you are in book clubs, they might be good ones to suggest and discuss as a book club team. Yeah, I'm going to end on a picture and talk a little bit about this. So this is a picture of my daughter, and it was a really cold, dark night, and I didn't feel like going out at all. And I don't know how many people here are familiar with or have been to the winter lights at the Bradley Estates in Canton. But I took my daughter there, and it was a really cold, dark night. And it was simply magical to be around all of the lights and everything shining. And it made me realize just how powerful those lights really are when it's dark. So there are some other cultures who will embrace this notion and have white twinkly lights up all winter. You may notice some of your neighbors, or maybe even some of you, keep your winter lights up a little bit longer during the season. Light some candles or light a fireplace. But those sparkly winter lights really make a difference, and they lighten the soul, and it was a really happy thing to do. So I'm going to encourage everybody to consider some white twinkle lights if you're feeling like you need that as a boost. And that is the end of my formal presentation, and I wonder if there are any comments or questions that we might want to entertain and talk about as a group. And I can stop sharing if I should.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for that great presentation. We do have a question in the chat, and the question is, what are your thoughts on light boxes to help ease mood during the winter months?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I brought that up briefly on, I call it a happy light or a sunlight or the light boxes. So I know some people that use them and really feel the benefits of them. I haven't tried them myself, and I wonder if some of it also is placebo effect. So you think that having that light is really making an impact on you. But I will say that for me, when I'm around light in the darkness, especially in the morning, if I wake up at 6 in the morning and it's really dark, I try to sit in a space where I know the sun is going to come up and I'm going to get exposed to that. So the more light that you can get exposed to is a positive thing. So I would say try it. If you do the research on it, you'll get some conflicting outcomes. So I think it's person dependent.
See, I think we have another question in the chat.
Okay.
And let's see, many people talk about getting sunlight exposure right when they wake up for
Yep.
10 to 15 minutes. Is this something you practice and may recommend?
Yeah. So I have read and heard about this as an important mechanism to kind of start your day and start your circadian rhythm on a pattern for your sleep-wake cycle. I do practice it. So when I wake up in the morning, I look for, again, where the sun is rising. I do it indoors. Sometimes I try to go outdoors if it's not too cold, and I
Mhm.
just look up at the light and I try to soak it all in. So I do practice that. Another thing I practice, which is not scientific, but at night I go outside and I look up at the sky and the stars and the moon to sort of, embrace all all the darkness, but the light, and also end my day. So some of the things that are encouraged during the winter months are to have your winter rituals. And we may all have different rituals during different seasons, right?
That's true.
Like in the summer, oh, I take my beach walk in the morning. But my winter ritual, one of them is to go outside at night. If it's not too cold, I'll actually go out barefoot so I feel grounded, and I'll look up at the stars and the moon. But I do also do the morning light to try to set my rhythm.
That's beautiful. I feel like this particular winter has been so cold, so very long, and so much snow.
Yeah.
You look out the window, there's more snow. I just shoveled last night. So this is so timely
Yeah.
to be thinking about these tips.
Okay. Any other comments or any other things that people would like to talk about that I haven't brought up?
I don't see any other questions at this time, but are there any other final thoughts you have on the subject, or once spring hits, maybe people should be thinking now of some spring rituals they can start incorporating into
Yeah.
their lives.
Yeah. Another thing I'll add is that if you're a planter, if you're a farmer, or you like flowers, you can start looking into cultivating, um, seedlings inside
That's true.
with
Yeah.
light lamps, and like even using egg cartons and keeping it covered. So if you like to do that type of thing, that's a hobby that you can embrace in the winter. And just seeing the growth, I think, has a real mental effect on us to see things growing, because let's face it, in the winter, we don't see a lot of things growing.
That's
We
true.
see things really dormant,
Yeah,
right? I also will add that if you aren't able to get outside a lot, bring some outside inside. Like clip some greenery and put it in a vase. Buy yourself some flowers and put it in a vase. Like bring some outside inside so that you feel some of that nature and it adds to your atmosphere. Because really, nature is healing, nature is medicine. If you even do a Google nature as medicine, you don't even have to do a formal literature search. You'll see so much about that and the positive benefits,
lovely.
especially during winter.
People like to do that, I think, a lot with pine cones, especially during the holiday season, but that's
Yeah,
one aspect to
yeah.
bring in.
Yeah, another thing I think that goes along with the vermis aspect is, on your stove top, you can put some spices like cinnamon, clove, oranges, and just like simmer it, and it will make your whole house smell really, really cozy. So that's another thing I like to do in the winter.
The warm spices, yes. Sounds
Yeah.
lovely. The
And
Thanksgiving
it
spices.
yeah, lifts your mood a little bit.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being part of this talk, Michelle. We really enjoyed having you. And as I mentioned in the chat and the comments, people can this where this is being recorded. People in a
Yep.
couple of weeks can go on and watch this again if they maybe if they weren't here in the beginning, they'll get to view the whole program.
Wonderful. So stay connected, find your people, don't isolate, and look for the sunshine whenever you can, would be my parting
Wonderful.
words. All right.
I
Thank
think
you all. Have a wonderful night.
thank you for joining everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye.